Are you prepared for when your surveillance ends up going much longer than what you expected? Hi, this is Larry Kaye with ShadowAnyone.com and the creator of the Investigator's Ultimate Guide series. Look, not uncommon to be working surveillance and to get a phone call from the client and discover that something has changed at the last minute and they need you to stay out there for sometimes maybe an extra hour, sometimes it might be many more hours. Are you prepared when you get that call? Let's face it, a call like that can mean anywhere from an extra $85 to an extra $300 or more. You don't want to be in a position where you lack what you need in order to make that extra money. If you really think about it, many times when you do surveillance, you will have a minimum amount of time that you do a surveillance for. So you might have a 3-hour minimum. You don't want to be running out of someplace just to sit up for an hour on it and then to have to leave. So you'll do a 3-hour minimum many times. A surveillance that's extended by just 1 hour, going from 3 hours to 4 hours, if you think about that, that's 33% more money than what you thought you were going to be making. You thought you were going to make 3 hours, you end up making 4 hours. Not an insignificant amount of extra money to make. So when you get that phone call or when circumstances change and you just find yourself having to go along, make sure you're prepared. And I'm going to go through a list of things today. Make sure you have in your surveillance vehicle that will allow you to go that extra mile. Now, the first thing I'm going to mention is a container to collect your waste if you need to do that. To be honest with you, probably that's going to be the first and most urgent and most non-negotiable thing that would force you to end your surveillance early. Again, in a situation where it's a surprise that you're doing surveillance longer, it's not like you had a chance to moderate your water intake or prepare for going a long haul. You might see a certain time on the clock as being when you're going to end work and know that within a half hour or so you can be at a restroom. When a surveillance goes long, that option ends. So having a bottle for waste collection is important, and it's, again, probably the first and most urgent thing that will end a surveillance. Next on the list is having plenty to drink in your vehicle, extra bottles of water. Again, this is not something that is going to immediately cause you to have to end a surveillance, but it's one of those things that can become extremely uncomfortable, and depending on the weather and the heat, can be very dangerous. So you got to have extra drinking water in your vehicle. The third thing is to have some food to eat, extra food. And again, notice, much less important than the water, because the thirst will drive you off of that surveillance from a safety and danger point of view before the hunger will. You can go much longer without eating than you think. And I say that as one of many people online who has not gone to medical school and is just making a guess about your physical condition. But I have discovered for myself, it's not the end of the world if I go a few extra hours without eating that I wasn't planning on going. That's certainly something that I can absorb. But having extra food in your vehicle is very helpful. And again, basics of surveillance, have a quiet food in your vehicle. If you have bags of chips or something like that, aside from the fact that they'll make you extra thirsty, which means you're going to be consuming more water, which means you're going to be filling up your waste containers more quickly and more often. All of that's a downhill slide. A quiet food is a food that you'll be able to eat without having to worry about disturbing or drawing attention to yourself, disturbing anything, drawing attention from people walking by on the sidewalk, that type of thing. If you've got anything in your vehicle, including a cooling fan, that is noisy enough that you are reluctant to use it, then you won't use it, and that's the same as not having it. After food, having some kind of audio, books on tape, or the ability to plug into your phone and listen to things, or plug in and listen to radio. Again, not a deal breaker. You can go all night long, no problem with nothing like that, but it does begin to make the surveillance much, much easier if you have something you can listen to, something that you're enjoying. You cannot read, obviously. Looking away from what you should be focusing on is bad news. It's going to cost you. Do not be playing on your phone, aside from the light that it gives off, especially at night. Again, it's a distraction. You just simply can't do the surveillance well while you're playing on your phone. If the things I've shared with you so far are not a surprise, this one should not come as a surprise either. I'd have some toilet paper in your vehicle. If you got to use that, you're in pretty bad shape. It does have some auxiliary uses aside from the obvious, including if your windows are fogging up, it might give you a clean, dry thing to wipe your inside of your window with. If you cut yourself, it can act as a temporary bandage or try to stop a little bit of that small bleeding that you might get. But a roll of toilet paper, that can go a long way towards allowing you to extend a surveillance. Now for the single most important thing you have to have in your surveillance vehicle if your surveillance goes long, otherwise the surveillance is over. I will share that with you, and I have a little subset that goes with that. First, I want to remind you at shadowanyone.com, I do have a free report called If You Want to Be a Private Investigator, Give Up Unless You Do These Three Things. That's for free on the homepage of shadowanyone.com. Please check that out. The most important thing you need to have in your surveillance vehicle in order to let the surveillance continue to go is a power source. If the battery on your camera dies, then you're done with surveillance. You're not able to take any more video. So you need to have some way. Maybe you've got an inverter that you can plug into a cigarette lighter and run to power your camera. Maybe your camera can be run or powered off of some different type of adapter that goes into the cigarette lighter. Maybe you have an extra battery pack in the back, like I teach in the Investigator's Ultimate Guide to Surveillance. But some source of power. If you run out of power, you are off the surveillance. It's over. The subset of that thing would be your digital media. Make sure you have plenty of digital media, because if you're running a surveillance where you're just letting that camera point at, say, a house, a front door in the garage or in frame, because you want to capture every moment. When that door opens and they step out, you don't want to be at that point reaching for your camera, try to press record. So maybe you have your camera recording quite constantly, and you might find yourself burning through a few hours of digital media before that person comes out. So that subset of the most important thing being power, the subset, make sure you have plenty of digital media to capture what you need so your case will be a success. If you have any other ideas about going long on a surveillance, feel free to drop them in the comments below. In the meantime, this is Larry Kaye with shadowanyone.com. Remember, do the right thing, even if it's the hard thing.